Hi, my name is Taynita, and you're listening to ECAfrica Talks, our ECAfrica podcast. Please like, subscribe, share, and leave a comment down below. Let us know who you want to see next or any questions you have for our entrepreneurs. Today's episode is very exciting because we have a friend of JTCom, a friend of ECAfrica, someone whose journey is so interesting to look at because it's from a creative sector perspective. And so I'm really excited to introduce you guys or reintroduce you guys to Don Dada. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me, Taynita. It's such a pleasure to be here.
I'm so excited to see what you've been up to and what you've been doing. Your journey is so interesting to me because it's in a sector that sometimes is excluded from business talks.
Yeah.
And I think that what you're doing is championing that in such a great, authentic way. So I hope that this will be a podcast that people learn something from.
100%. I hope so as well.
So something I like to do with our guests is ask them to introduce themselves because I believe nobody can advocate for you as best as you can for yourself. So Tell us a little bit about yourself.
All right, so my birth name is Menelik Nesta Gibbons. Menelik, after the son of King Solomon, Queen of Sheba, the lineage of of Emperor Haile Selassie I. Menelik after Robert Nesta Marley when he met my mother in 1980 in the streets of Harare, Zimbabwe. They had a brief conversation discussing African history and at the end of the conversation, he asked my mom to do two things: to brush up on African history, number one. Number two, if she ever has a child, to name him or her kind of after him. If it's a her, I'm going to say kind of. So, of course, I was born 7 years later, and we bear the same middle name. That's my real government name. And then on stage, my name is Don Dada. I'm a multi-platinum, a multi-genre performing artist, the only Southern African distributed by Bob Marley's very own Tough Gong International, as well as the partner of Ruff Cutt record label with my father, which we started in 2009. So that's my own label where we distribute my music, also other artists, and do a whole host of other things. Yeah.
Stunning. That's what I'm saying. It's so interesting, right? You're not just a musician. You're not just a creative. You are birthed from this entrepreneurial background, especially you come from a family business. I come from a family business. I think it's always really interesting to chat to people who have that's a similar journey.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about being the only African who is distributed by Bob Marley. Like, that is insane.
All right.
What does that mean?
It means so much to me. It feels kind of like destiny. Like I said, 7 years before my birth, in fact, to the month, my mom met Bob Marley in April. I was born in April 7 years later. So to meet him, to be named after him, then to go and be invited to perform on the second inauguration stage of a Zimbabwean president, Bob Marley being on the first stage for then Robert Mugabe, and I was brought for Emerson Mnangagwa. So then walking in those steps and then signing with Tough Gong and then going to Jamaica and performing at Bob Marley's house for his birthday celebrations. It's all very surreal stuff. I don't think stuff that I would ever thought I would have done, especially because I started in hip hop. So to have moved to reggae music and then done all of this in reggae music, it's amazing for me as well.
So can you tell me a little bit about the space of reggae hip hop on the continent and in South Africa? Because off camera, we had a little bit of a brief conversation about what it means to be in the music business.
Yeah.
And so what does that landscape look like currently?
Well, it's a very interesting one. When you look at hip-hop in South Africa, hip-hop is one of the dominant genres. You could put them in the top 5 of the dominant genres in South Africa. With that comes exposure to a lot of corporate deals and so on, which then takes your business to a next level, and also your business knowledge. So you're dealing with people where you'd have to understand and know more. When you're looking at reggae music, it used to be one of the dominant genres in South Africa, I think prior to 1994. With the passing of our legend Lucky Dube, it slid off the map of South African music's landscape, which has also meant that working with corporates and getting sponsorships and synergies has become a very difficult thing. And I also think it has to do with the content of reggae music. The content is very religious. It's also can be viewed as something that's rebellious at times. So I think that the content was also something that perhaps people were not wanting to play on these commercial stations and so on. on right now. So it becomes a different battle as a reggae artist on how you promote your music and how you deal with your music, because obviously you don't have the mainstreams as other people would have. But luckily we are in Africa, and reggae music in Africa are just one in the same. The marriage is seamless. So when it comes to Reggae Month or Africa Month, reggae music is one of the musics that gets a seat at the table, which I really love. So we do have our time, but we have to extend it and make it more prominent like hip hop is.
Stunning. Can you tell us a little bit about your entrepreneurial journey? So what made you want to enter into the business space of it? Was it a family thing? And also, have you seen that your peers are in a similar space, or do you think that there needs to be a bigger conversation about entrepreneurship in the music sector specifically?
Well, what made me head into the entrepreneurial sphere was basically wanting to be independent since a young man, wanting to own my entire catalog of music, from masters to my publishing to royalties. I found it very important for me to be in control, because when you're in control, nobody can take you off the path that you've set for yourself. So that was the main idea behind it. Now, let me say that the idea sounds easy when you first speak it out, but as you start getting experience, you start to realize that a collaboration is always key. Working with other partners within the industry, especially the bigger partners with more experience, more power, these are the people that can help you to take your brand to a next level. So even though you're independent, I don't think there's truly independence in any sense of business, because you'll always rely on collaboration and partnership to take you forward. People have knowledge that you don't have. So it's been a very interesting journey. I've been very blessed, especially as a young artist. I sold 2.8 million copies of my song Viva Mandela. It went multi-platinum in the space of 4 months, which is a rarity for an independent artist. So that also showed me that the path I had chosen was correct. My PR, my marketing that I was using for myself was working for me. But what works for one doesn't necessarily work for another. So you also have to evaluate your model and see what works for you and what doesn't. And it took us a long time to get there, but I think we're fine-tuning it. And I think the path we're on is quite good and strong.
Stunning. So a big question that I always like to ask is, for our different entrepreneurs who have come on, what are some of the gaps in your sector that you're seeing, especially in South Africa, that you think should be something that we're highlighting, but also a place that we, as business owners, as entrepreneurs, that we should be looking to problem solve?
You know, when you look at music, there is so much going on within it, and we can talk about the contribution to the economy, and they speak about the musical economy of Mzansi. It's a billion rand business, excuse me, if you look at the yearly income of South African music. Within that, you've got artists, which everybody wants to be, but it's not the only job available. We have managers, we have production, you have music law. There is so many different facilities within it that you could slot into, which I always tell young people about, because I think it's very important to understand that being in front of the mic, number one, is not the longest career. It's usually the shortest, because especially with hip hop, it's a young man's game. Once you start getting into your older years, there's no 70-year-old rappers on stage. You know what I mean? So you have to have something to fall back on. And once you're in the music sphere, and if you can understand the business, the easiest thing to fall back on would be the business, to fall back and help others to achieve their dreams and to build them up and to give opportunities to other youngsters. So the first thing I thought about was empowering myself in that regard. So I studied at ASE so I could understand more of the law and the technicalities of owning a record label, producing music, distributing music, publishing music. I know everything that I thought I needed to know. I don't know everything now. Now I know that. But yeah, we grow as we learn. And then it's also shown me that there's many opportunities for young people to step in. So we've worked with African tycoons, where we're taking children out of university and we're placing them into spheres within entertainment, such as news reading or curation of catalogs of music for radio stations, which is giving them an opportunity to, number one, one, gain experience and create a career within music, that ordinarily does not happen, because that's another problem I have with a lot of workplaces, is that there's opportunity. They'll give you a job if you have experience, but how do you gain the experience? So I try and give young people that opportunity to get experience while on a stipend, so that when they look for bigger and better things, they're well equipped.
Wow. So you own a record label, but you're also a brand in yourself, right?
Yeah.
And so a trend that I'm seeing, especially I guess in the UK and the US, is these artists who have created a brand around themselves, but then also have businesses that maybe people don't always know about.
Yeah.
What is the pull to do that? Because I'm assuming it means that if your brand, you are flourishing, it means your business can succeed.
Yeah.
But I guess a really big example of that is Fenty, right?
Yes.
With Rihanna, where her music brand sort of catapulted her into that, but now she's a businesswoman, a tycoon in her own right. And so what is the draw sometimes to, you see these artists who you think are going to have this really long career in front of the mic, like you were saying, and it tends to be the shortest part. Why do you think it's so important to have a business behind you?
Well, music has changed so drastically over the years, and now that we've gotten into the digital realm, the earnings that you get from creating music is nowhere near the same as you did when there was cassettes or when there was LPs or even CDs. It's completely different. So your sales are much lower. Your performances, perhaps you could get really, like, let's say we're talking about Rihanna. So Rihanna, you could talk about R1,000,000 for a performance, or US dollars for a performance. But how often are you getting R1,000,000 performance? Is it once a month, once a year? That becomes another struggle. And so if you can leverage on your brand to look at other avenues, such as merchandising, your clothings, your ringtones, collaborating with other companies, let's say MTN to sell, let's say, a new cell phone that's out or whatever, then you're looking at the revenue streams that are not detrimental on your album sales. So it gives you more financial freedom, and it's also revenue streams that can be accessed when you're not on the microphone, because being on the mic is not a possibility all the time, especially if you're someone touring like Rihanna. You're doing the whole world. How often can you be in the studio creating new music, promoting new music? Whereas if you have a brand, you're doing maybe, let's say I'm doing clothing, I'm creating for a season. So I'm doing summer, I'm chilling for then, next season I'm creating. So it gives you more breathing room. So I think it's something great to add to your catalog. But of course, like you said, your music has to be great before you start looking at creating other things, because people are not going to want to purchase your brand if the music is not strong. So you have to first work on stage 1 before you move to stage 10. And that's also something a lot of artists make the mistake with. They try and do everything at once, which kind of is too much.
Wow.
Yeah.
So something that's very interesting to me is finding out what you think the landscape's going to look like in a few years, or even just this year, right? We're coming post-COVID, we're coming into a time of streaming. You own a record label. I'm assuming it means that you are also interacting with different artists at different ages, different ranges of what they're doing. What do you think the landscape's going to look like?
South African music is an amazingly exciting landscape, especially with the meetings that I've been attending over the last couple of days. There is just so much positivity going around. There's projections that South African music will grow year on year by 40% until the year 3038, which means when you look at what we're creating, we're going to have one of the strongest musical industries, not just on the continent, but in the world, which means South African artists are moving into a global path. We're talking the Jay-Z's, the Beyoncé's, and it makes sense when you look at the Tylers receiving awards, Master KG's, we're heading in that direction. So South African music is on the cusp of greatness. I think it's going to be 1 or 2 more artists that win the Grammys, and then it's just going to be a flood of South Africa everywhere. And I think when that happens, we have to be well prepared and well equipped to deal with the world, because it's very nice to have a product that everybody wants, but it's also very easy to be robbed if you don't know what you're doing. So we have to be very knowledgeable once the floodgates open, to protect our music and to make sure that it benefits us as South Africans and creates jobs for the economy.
And I think that speaks to exactly what we were saying before this, of saying that it is a business of music. It's important to know about the legalities. It's important to know how to back your brand. I mean, you spoke about your rights, I think so many people are thinking like the face of music looks like this, but the back end is so important. Who owns your catalog? Who owns your music? And so I love what you, and on all the conversations we've had with you, I love how you champion that, the importance of artists knowing their brand, knowing who they are, knowing the ins and outs of it, because you never want to be in the space where somebody knows more about your business than you do. And so I think that's such a different conversation to be having, especially in South Africa, where you're saying we're at this cusp of it. So you would want the artists who are going to flourish, who are currently here, like yourself, to be equipped for the greatness that is going to come, because you don't want to be in the position where South African artists are being starved, and I mean, we are seeing that with our previous generations, where so many artists, I guess, didn't maybe future plan or didn't succession plan or didn't think about this point, and COVID wiped out the whole industry, right? 100%. So live music is such a big thing here, going to a concert, going to a picnic, and so many artists either crumbled or just weren't able to pivot. And I'm hoping that post-COVID we can see them have a resurgence.
100%.
But my question to you, I guess, is you have a show now, you have the record label. Why did you find it important to diversify, especially post-COVID?
Well, like I was saying, music is one revenue stream. But beyond music, I have a passion of development. I love to develop youth. And when I looked at reggae music, as I had said earlier, the platforms for reggae music are so limited. And so I went to Bogart Men and I pitched to them the idea of creating a reggae show where it's not only playing Jamaican or international reggae, but we focus on giving the South African artists a platform and a place that they can push their music. And they were more than happy to provide me with the space. So hence why I'm at Bogart Men every Saturday from 12 to 2. I do a reggae segment from hip hop to jam rock. That's what I call it. Also because hip hop is derived from reggae music. The first sound system that was created in hip hop by a man by the name of MC Kool Herc. He came from Jamaica with the concept of sound clashes, and that was in New York City where he brought that, and that's the birth of hip hop. So I'm trying to also create that synergy between hip hop and reggae music, because we're brother and sister genres, we should work closer together. So I'm trying to do that here in South Africa. And then, of course, beyond creating platforms for the youths, it's also for giving experience to all of the younger people that want to become involved in music but don't know how to become involved. So we have people come through the Bogart Men that we've placed as newsreaders. We have people that have come through, they've been placed as station management for the curation of certain shows. There's some people that plan out how shows will be aired, or I wanted to say shot, but it's not the right word for radio, how airs would be carried out on air. There's a whole bunch of different opportunities that are available that we've been creating. So I've been really focused on doing that for the youth and for myself. And then, of course, I always make promises wherever I go. So, for example, when I was in Eastern Cape, I had promised them that next time I come here, I will have developed an artist from this area. Hence why when I left Eastern Cape, I started working with a lady by the name of Seed Under. She has now been nominated for one of the best newcomers in Kwaito music. She's doing such amazing and beautiful things. So when she goes back home, at least I've carried out my promise to the Eastern Cape. So a lot of the times things that I do are not for money, but it's for passion, and because I want to see Africa and South Africa on a better place than where I found it. When I was born, apartheid had just fallen, and when I leave, I want to see South Africa competing with the world, with the top nations, with superpowers. We have to look at it that way. No matter what we do, whether it's music, whether it's commerce, whatever we do, we have to compete. And so that's what I'm trying to do.
That is so good. So before we end, I have 2 questions for you. The first is, I always think it's really interesting to ask our entrepreneurs who you're looking at, what you're doing. So one of my big questions is there anybody on your radar that we should be looking business-wise? Is there any podcasts or shows or anybody that you think you'd like to shout out?
Oh, well, I mean, the best podcast is the podcast I'm on right now. So I'm gonna shout that out to you. Y'all need to share it to all your friends. I'm looking at you, I'm talking to you, share it with everybody you know, because this is beautiful. This is positive. You don't get much of this out there. So please support. The other people I would like to shout out, I'd like to shout out my band, Redemption Sound Band, Rashid Lani on keys, one of the legends in South Africa. I think he also does a lot of scores for Netflix movies. He's worked with the Lionel Richies and amazing people, so I'm blessed to work with him. On drums, Veli Shabangu from Lucky Dube Band in Stumela. What a legend, and he's like my big brother / father. Thank you for your leadership and guidance. Aus Tebs on bass, the female with the most. I've never seen a lady that can play bass like that. Never mind lady, I've never seen anyone who can play bass like that. She's amazing, just amazing. Joel, who's also worked with Lucky Dube Band and also worked with Veli Shabangu throughout their career. I'd like to thank him. He's on guitar. That's my band. Love and respect to you. Tough Gong International, thank you very much for the support. Jamaica, me say me love it when you're by my side. Stay with the man them. We are stay pushing. It's a beautiful thing. We not say Rastafari. And of course the Rasta community, always by my side and standing with me. And thank you for this beautiful moment.
Stunning. I just think it's important, right, to give people their flowers and to... We've met so many interesting entrepreneurs by speaking to other people.
Yeah.
A lot of the people that we've had on the show are by reference or by word of mouth. And I think that in South Africa, we need to do better at collaborating with each other and giving each other our flowers. 100%. Just because somebody is shining does not mean that you're not shining.
True.
And it's something that I've learned in this network. It's something I'm really grateful to have learned in this network, and so many of you guys who have been on the show and have come and done Bunnies in the Burbs and have come and played here and had conversations here have feeded into me and to who I am. And so I'm such a champion of that, of getting to shout people out and really acknowledge where we come from and the good that is happening, because I mean there is chaos and there's scenes and there's so much wrong, but there's so much that is good, and there's so many people that are really working on the ground and putting in effort and creating solutions to problems and shining a light on things that you never thought you would ever need. I mean, I think about myself and like streaming platforms. Yeah. I was like, oh, we don't actually really need that because my brother and I are YouTube kids, so we never watched TV. And I was like, oh, we don't need a streaming platform, it's fine. And now I can just watch whatever I want to watch, wherever I want to do so. And places like Showmax that champion African work is so important. Places like Spotify that allow us to have African music on the platform is so important. So I really appreciate that.
Thank you.
My last question to you is, what is some advice that somebody has given you on your entrepreneurial journey that you would like to pay it forward? Or just what is some advice that you give to your young entrepreneurs?
Well, on my show, I think 2 weeks ago, I had the former head of Sony Records South Africa for a conversation, Vusi Liu. And I think he gave me one of the most important or pertinent piece of advice, not just with business, but with life in general. And he said that if you want to accomplish something, you don't wait for the perfect condition. Use what you have at your disposal, because people want to join somebody that's already on a mission. So start moving forward now, because if you're standing still, nobody will move with you. But if you're moving, then you'll find a crowd will form very quickly and you wouldn't even know it. And I think that's very powerful. Whatever you have with you, pen, paper, whatever you have, it's enough to start. Start your dream. And once you've started, there's no going back. You've already taken the steps. You're moving forward and people will join you.
That speaks exactly to our mission as ECAfrica, right? To look at the resources that we have in our networks, to look at the resources that you have. How can you pay that forward? How can you use what you have around you to create what you want to see? Because waiting, like you're saying, you're going to be waiting for forever, and somebody else is moving with their piece of paper, with their one contact, with their whatever they're doing. And so I think that's such a good thing to say, like, you actually have the tools and you have so much more than you think that you have.
100%.
Which is so good. So thank you so much for being on our show. Thank you for always being so generous with the information that you share with us. And we're such fans and we love watching your journey. I hope that it was enjoyable for you. Like we said, please like, subscribe, and share. And where can they find you?
You can find me on any form of social media. The handle is always the same, at Don Dada Music. That's at DONDADAMUSIC. Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. It's not even Twitter, X. Whatever just social media, I'm there. Alternatively, www.dondadamusic.com. That's my website. You can get all the links and all the best stuff right there. And thank you so much. I'm humbled by your presence. Thank you.
Thank you, guys. We'll see you next time.